I use a lot of fragrances throughout the course of a month, but these are the bangers I've been reaching for a bit more than the rest lately. I'm back on using one of the very best releases of 2026, and I have two insane compliment-getting combos for you. And I've been going back to some of my older favorites lately, including some backup bottle worthy scents and more. So make sure you like, subscribe, and save this video. So I'm still enjoying Le Bon Narcisse. What a compliment getter this thing is, but I've been enjoying it more in these two very specific ways. And the first way is when I layer it with the epic OG Le Bon EDT. And what this combo basically gives me is a gorgeous and quite nuanced dose of vanilla with Le Bon's gorgeous creamy coconut and a bit of freshness. And all around that coconutty, sweet vanillic and fresh blend, we have Narcisse's gorgeous powdery musk. I absolutely love the OG's coconut, so this combo gives me the best of both. The next compliment-getting combo is Narcisse together with Le Malin Bleu. There's something absolutely magical that happens when I combine these two, and the way the lavender and anise and the sweetness of Le Malin Bleu comes together with the vanilla and freshness of Narcisse is fantastic. Le Malin Bleu simply makes Narcisse more masculine and a lot sexier. And I'm finally back to enjoying Prada Luna Rossa Carbone, the new Eau de Parfum. I do think that Luna Rossa Carbone Eau de Parfum is still one of the best releases of this year. You get an absolutely gorgeous dose of fresh lavender that sits on top of a super sexy, almost gourmand kind of sweetness that in a way leans towards something that you could say is a bit licorice-ish. And that lavender and unique sweetness sits on top of what I think is an incredibly smoothly woody base. So I'm not sure you can see the dent I put into it since I bought it, but I absolutely love the Eau de Parfum, and what a fantastic head turner and compliment getter the EDP is. So moving on to Ralph Lauren Polo 67, this is the Eau de Parfum Extreme, and I've been using the Extreme a lot lately in order to finally come to the conclusion of which of the Polo 67s I think is the best. I've got a full comparison coming up quite soon, so make sure you subscribe for that one. But in a nutshell, what you're basically getting with the Eau de Parfum Extreme is a bit of that gorgeous aromatic and citrusy freshness that you also got in the OG EDT. That freshness basically sits on top of a sweet and juicy dose of pineapple, and the whole thing is also quite smoothly woody. Out of the three, the Eau de Parfum Extreme is probably the most classy and elegant and mature one. It's fresh, sweet, woody and leathery in a fantastic way. So moving on to a fantastic fragrance that I did take a bit of a break from, but I'm so glad I started to reach for this thing again. This is like the most mass appealing, absolutely gorgeous, super smooth dose of booziness together with an extremely smooth and almost creamy kind of woodiness. You get a bit of freshness in the opening together with a bit of that fresh lavender, that fantastic fresh lavender that we can find in a lot of fragrances from YSL. And I do feel that the YSL basically took booziness but amped up its mass appeal to the max with this. What a gorgeous scent L'Homme Eau de Parfum is, and it's probably among some of the more unique scents in the L'Homme line. This used to be one of my most used sort of everyday kind of fragrances. You get a gorgeous dose of aromatic freshness with lavender taking the lead, a soft but really nice dose of orange blossom, and all that sits on top of what I think is an incredibly masculine and smooth dose of woodiness. I think the main thing that sort of separates a Gucci Guilty Pour Homme parfum from other sort of a similar scents is that they use a bit of orange blossom and that you have a bit of nutmeg in the opening. I basically kept getting compliment after compliment back when I was using this quite heavily, but only when I sprayed it properly. I'm so glad I gave my usual sort of suspects when it comes to everyday kind of fragrances a bit of a break and started reaching for this again. Le Sel d'Ici, the Eau de Toilette, is one of my favorite unique freshes, and I finally figured out which other fragrance that one reminded me of, and that was this thing right here. So bear with me here, I'm not saying that Le Sel d'Ici, the Eau de Toilette, and this are extremely similar. However, the overall vibe, the uniqueness of both, and somewhat the scent profiles actually, at least to my nose, are a bit similar. Oud Minerale is also mostly about quite an intense dose of marine freshness. It's also quite salty and aromatic, and it's also a bit woody. But the biggest twist, and what really separates the two, is that Tom Ford Oud Minerale has a dose of oud in it. The opening isn't bad, but the opening is still my least favorite part of this. But as soon as the whole thing moves into the dry and you're getting this quite unique kind of marine freshness that's quite salty. And the dryness is where that oud basically moves into the background. It's definitely been some time since I used Oud Minerale, but what a unique and head turner of a freshie this thing is. So moving on to another freshie that's also intensely salty, but one that is very different compared to Oud Minerale, and also a lot more mass appealing. You get fresh coconut, fresh citrus, salty freshness, and the whole thing is definitely a bit sweet and smoothly woody. And to my nose, Boss Bottle Pacific is almost sort of like a mix of the fantastic Calvin Klein Eternity for Men aromatic essence and the epic Le Beau Eau de Toilette. And in a way, like a fresher, more airy and more light version of those. And you can see how much I absolutely love this scent by the dent I put it to it. Let me know in the comments if you also love Boss Bottle Pacific, and if you also think this is a fragrance they should bring back. I believe I put the Gold Uomo on 5th place in my Valentino comparison and ranked. I'm gonna link to that video somewhere up here in the pinned comment and in the description below. And it's almost like they took that epic vanilla from Born in Roma Intense, but took it in a more spicy, bright and fresh direction, but without the gorgeous lavender that Born in Roma Intense has. The way that gorgeous Born in Roma Intense vanilla is blended with a different kind of freshness, a bit of smooth woodiness, and how gorgeously ambery warm the whole thing is absolutely fantastic. I mean, every single time I put my nose to the Gold Uomo, I simply smile. This is so good. I'm so happy I started reaching for this again, and I've been really enjoying this thing lately. So another fragrance that I bought years ago that I started to reach for quite a bit lately again is this thing right here. When you first spray it on, you're gonna get this, at least according to my nose, quite unique and almost ashy, cigarette ashy kind of tobacco. That sort of ashy kind of tobacco sits on top of a very intense dose of leather. The whole thing definitely has quite a prominent dose of woodiness to it, and you also get quite an attention-grabbing spicy kick in the opening, and the whole thing has a soft but really nice fruitiness to it. This is definitely not something you spray on as an everyday fragrance that most people will enjoy. However, this is definitely, without a single doubt, something you spray on when you really want to make a statement and turn heads. So moving on to a fragrance that quickly went on to become one of my favorites, and I'm gonna say that at least right now, this is definitely among some of my favorite releases of this year. And you're basically getting a really nice and super smooth dose of spicy freshness in the opening. That freshness sits on top of what I think is a super smooth and slightly sweet dose of fruitiness that to my nose definitely leans towards something that is a bit tropical with a mango-like kind of feel to it. And that freshness and sort of exotic and tropical kind of fruitiness sits on top of what I think is an extremely smooth and almost creamy kind of woodiness. Not only do I think this is an absolutely gorgeous scent, I also feel this is quite a unique scent. And here's a really nice bonus. For a Zara, the performance actually surprised me, and I'm getting quite good performance both when it comes to projection and longevity. I'm gonna link to my full review of a Zara Moonrise on the Horizon Intense somewhere up here in the pinned comment and in the description below. So moving on to a fragrance that gives me one of the most sort of a gourmand, tropical gourmand, cozy kind of vibes ever. You get coconut milk, roasted coconut, mango and vanilla in an absolutely gorgeous and quite intoxicating kind of blend. It's extremely smooth, also quite creamy, definitely a bit sweet, and all that tropical goodness rests on top of what I think is an extremely smoothly woody base. I absolutely love this fragrance, and not just because it does smell a bit like one of my absolute favorite desserts, which is mango sticky rice. This is Journal's mango sticky rice. Pretty much every single time I spray this thing on properly and someone gets a whiff of it, I pretty much always get the question on what it is that I'm wearing. So next up we have this. You basically get vanilla together with a bit of freshness, a bit of saltiness, and the whole thing is a bit sweet and softly powdery, and when the whole thing dries down, you're getting a bit of amber warmth and shine and a soft kind of woodiness. I bought 2 bottles bottles of this thing a few years back just in case they would discontinue it. It's definitely been some time since I've been reaching for it, but I'm so happy to be back to enjoying this again. I think the main star of Vanilla Vibes is definitely its gorgeous dose of vanilla and the overall freshness that it has. I really want to know your thoughts on the fragrances I've been reaching for quite a bit lately, and I also would absolutely love to know which fragrances in your collection that you've been reaching for a bit more than the rest. Let me know in the comments, drop a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my other videos over there.